Road trips were supposed to be fun. Long stretches of open road, music blasting through the speakers, and that strange sense of freedom that came from being miles away from home. But sometimes, the highway can feel less like freedom and more like a trap. I was 19 the first time I took a long drive with my best friend. We were heading back from a weekend trip, a 6-hour drive that cut through endless fields and back roads before finally connecting to the interstate. It was late, maybe around 11 p.m., and the highway was practically deserted. Just miles of asphalt stretching into darkness, our headlights carving out a tunnel of light ahead of us. We'd been joking around, trying to keep ourselves awake, when we both noticed him. A figure on the shoulder of the road, walking slowly with his back to us. He wasn't wearing reflective clothing, just dark jeans and a faded jacket. His posture was strange, slumped, like his head was too heavy for his shoulders. As we passed, the headlights caught his face, or at least what should have been his face. He lifted his head just enough to look at us, and I swear, it didn't look right. His expression was blank, hollow, like someone wearing a mask that didn't quite fit. We laughed nervously and told ourselves it was nothing, just some guy walking the highway at night. But as we would find out soon, he wasn't just some guy, and we weren't done seeing him. At first, neither of us said much, just that uneasy laugh people do when they're trying to brush off something weird. My friend turned the music up a little louder, and we kept driving. But 10 minutes later, we saw him again. Same faded jacket, same slumped shoulders, same slow walk on the shoulder of the highway. Only this time, it didn't make sense. We hadn't passed any cars pulled over, and we hadn't seen him walk past us when we drove by earlier. Yet somehow, there he was, ahead of us again, his figure illuminated by the high beams. My friend muttered, "What the hell?" and tightened his grip on the wheel. As we drove past, the man lifted his head just like before. His face was pale, expression blank, but his eyes, they locked on us, unblinking, like he knew who we were. The silence in the car grew heavy after that. I glanced in the side mirror, half expecting to see him looking back at us. But the shoulder of the road behind us was empty. We didn't talk about it for a while. The more we tried to ignore it, the more my skin prickled with unease. Finally, I broke the silence. "Do you think it's the same guy?" "It has to be," my friend said, though his voice sounded uncertain. "Maybe he got picked up and dropped off again." That explanation didn't sit right with me, but I nodded anyway. It was better than admitting the alternative, that something about him wasn't normal. Another 20 minutes passed. Just as my nerves began to settle, I spotted movement on the shoulder again. My stomach dropped. It was him. This time, though, he wasn't walking. He was standing still, facing the road, facing us. As we drew closer, his head slowly turned to follow the car. His expression still hollow, his eyes unblinking. I swore he smiled, but it wasn't the kind of smile a normal person would make. It was stretched too wide, too stiff, like he was forcing his mouth into a shape it wasn't meant to form. My friend cursed under his breath and sped up. We flew past him, the figure swallowed in the darkness behind us. Neither of us dared to look in the mirrors this time. The highway felt endless. Every bend in the road made me brace myself to see him again. I wanted to believe it was just exhaustion playing tricks on us, but the tension in my friend's face told me he saw it too, and just as clearly. Then, a few miles later, something happened that made my blood run cold. We were coming up on a small overpass, one of those bridges that cut across the highway, and there he was again. Only this time, he wasn't on the shoulder. He was standing dead center on the overpass, leaning slightly over the guardrail, watching us as we drove beneath him. For a split second, his face was directly above our windshield, pale and stretched into that same awful smile. I remember ducking instinctively, like he might leap down onto the car. My friend swore and slammed his foot on the gas. By the time we looked back, the overpass was empty. We drove in silence after that, The only sound in the car, the low hum of the engine, and the occasional thump of the tires hitting cracks in the road. My friend's knuckles were white around the steering wheel, and I couldn't stop glancing at the mirrors, half expecting to see that pale face right behind us. Every few miles, we'd pass an exit sign, but none of us wanted to pull off. The thought of stopping, even for gas, felt like a death sentence. Then, maybe 30 minutes later, it happened again. The headlights cut through the dark stretch of road ahead, and there he was. This time, standing in the middle of the lane, his body stiff, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, those eyes locked on our car like he'd been waiting for us. "Hold on!" my friend shouted, swerving hard into the left lane. The tires screeched as we sped past him, the figure just inches from my window. For a split second, I could see his face clearly. Gray, lifeless skin, lips curled into that impossible grin. I turned to look back, but he was gone. The highway behind us was empty, as if he had never been there at all. My heart was racing so hard, I thought I might pass out. My friend muttered curses under his breath, pressing the gas pedal to the floor. We didn't see him for the next hour, and just when I started to think maybe it was over, maybe we'd left him behind, a pair of headlights appeared in the distance, a car behind us, coming up fast. Relief hit me at first. Finally, another driver on this godforsaken road. But the longer I watched, the colder I felt. Because the headlights weren't just coming closer, they were matching our speed. Every time my friend sped up, the car did too. Every time we slowed slightly, it mirrored us. When it finally got close enough for me to make out the vehicle, my blood ran cold. It wasn't a car, it was a man. He was running in the middle of the road, his long, pale legs carrying him at an inhuman speed, his face locked in that same expression as he kept pace with us. His eyes glowed faintly in the headlights, and his grin stretched wider, as if feeding off our terror. My friend floored the gas, the engine roaring as the car surged forward. I dared one last look in the side mirror, and I swear I saw him keeping up, his body jerking unnaturally with each stride. And then, just as suddenly as he appeared, he was gone. The road behind us was empty once again. We didn't stop once after that. Not for food, not for gas, nothing. My friend gripped the wheel until dawn, and I sat in silence, too afraid to close my eyes. Every shadow on the side of the road looked like him. Every curve in the highway felt like a trap waiting for him to reappear. When the sun finally rose, painting the fields gold, it felt almost unreal, like the night before had been some twisted dream. But I knew it wasn't. My hands still trembled, and my throat was dry from breathing so hard for so long. We made it home safely, but neither of us talked much about what happened. When we finally did, days later, we both admitted the same thing. It wasn't just a man. There's no way a human being could move like that. No way someone could appear ahead of us again and again without a car. No way someone could keep up with us at 70 miles per hour on foot. To this day, I can't drive on an empty highway at night without checking the mirrors every few seconds. And every time I see a figure walking on the shoulder, I feel my chest tighten. Because deep down, I know it's only a matter of time before I see that pale face again, standing in the middle of the road, waiting for me. Long road trips with family were always supposed to feel safe. Being together, stopping for snacks, and pulling into rest areas along the highway. It all felt normal, routine. But sometimes, even the most ordinary stops can turn into the most terrifying memories. I was 13 when this happened. My family was driving cross-country to visit relatives, and after hours on the road, we pulled into one of those lonely highway rest stops. It was the kind that looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. Flickering yellow lights, cracked pavement, and vending machines humming in the corner. My dad parked near the bathrooms, and my mom took my little brother inside while I stretched my legs. The lot was mostly empty, except for one beat-up old sedan parked way off in the corner. I didn't pay much attention to it at first, but as I walked toward the vending machines, I noticed a man leaning against that car. He was tall, thin, and dressed in clothes that looked too big for him. Baggy jeans and a dark hoodie pulled up over his head. He wasn't smoking or on his phone, just standing there, watching. At first I thought maybe I was imagining it, but when my dad went inside for a minute, leaving me alone by the machines, I looked up again, and the man was gone. At least that's what I thought, until I realized he was no longer by his car. He was standing much closer now, just a few feet from me. I froze where I stood, my hand hovering over the vending machine buttons. The man didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, close enough that I could see his pale skin under the hood. His eyes locked directly on mine. "You traveling far?" he asked finally, his voice low and scratchy. I forced a weak nod, pretending I wasn't terrified. My dad was still inside. My mom and little brother probably just now washing their hands. I told myself they'd be back any second. The man grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Long night," he muttered. "You should be careful out here." Before I could respond, the bathroom door opened, and my dad stepped back out. The man immediately turned and walked away, heading back toward his car. I let out a shaky breath, trying to act normal as my family rejoined me. We grabbed some snacks, piled back into the car, and I convinced myself that was the end of it. Just some weird guy passing through. But as we pulled back onto the highway, headlights appeared behind us. A pair of dim, yellowish beams growing closer in the rearview mirror. My dad muttered about tailgaters and switched lanes. The car followed. When he sped up, it sped up. When he slowed down, so did it. I looked closer as the car drew alongside us for a moment, and my stomach dropped. It was the same beat-up sedan from the rest stop. And behind the wheel, leaning forward, with both hands gripping the steering wheel too tightly, was the man in the hoodie. My mom asked my dad what he was doing, and he brushed it off, saying he'd lose him at the next exit. But when we tried, the sedan followed us off the highway, down the ramp, and back onto another road. The next 30 minutes felt like a nightmare. Every turn we made, every exit we tried, the car stayed right behind us, its headlights glaring into our back window. My little brother was crying, asking what was happening, while my mom kept twisting in her seat to look behind us. Finally, my dad pulled into a well-lit gas station, figuring the man wouldn't follow us somewhere public. At first, it seemed to work. We parked near the pumps, and the sedan drove right past. Relief washed over me, but it didn't last, because less than 2 minutes later, as we stood outside stretching, I saw the car again, circling slowly around the lot before parking across the street, its headlights still aimed in our direction. The man never got out. He just sat there, watching. My dad tried to act calm, but I saw the tension in his jaw as he told us to get back in the car. We drove off again, this time in complete silence. I kept checking the mirrors, and for miles the sedan was gone. But then, just as the road grew darker and lonelier again, those same yellowish headlights appeared in the distance behind us. The tension in the car was unbearable. My little brother had fallen asleep in the back seat, but my mom and I sat frozen, staring out the windows while my dad kept glancing at the mirror. The headlights behind us never faded. No matter how fast we went, no matter how many exits we took, the sedan stayed close enough that we could see the outline of the driver hunched forward, gripping the wheel. Finally, my dad muttered, "That's it," and turned off onto a narrow 2-lane road. His plan was to see if the car would follow us somewhere completely off the main highway. It did. The sedan turned in right after us, its headlights bouncing on the cracked pavement. For a few minutes, it stayed several car lengths back, but then it began to close the distance. "Get your phone," my dad told my mom. "Call the police." She fumbled with her purse, her hands shaking as she dialed. But just as she started explaining the situation, the sedan suddenly sped up. It pulled into the oncoming lane, riding directly beside us. For the first time, I saw the man's face clearly. Hood still up, but his expression visible in the glow of his dashboard lights. He was grinning, wide, stretched, like he was enjoying this. He stared right at me through the window, keeping pace with our car. Then he mouthed something. Just 2 words. "Pull over." My dad cursed and floored the gas, our car roaring down the narrow road. The sedan swerved, trying to block us, its tires screeching as it edged closer. For a second, I thought he was going to slam into us. But then, out of nowhere, another set of headlights appeared in the distance, an approaching truck. The sedan jerked back into its lane just before a head-on collision, and for a split second, I saw the driver's head snap toward us, that grin twisting into something darker. We sped past the truck, my heart hammering so loud I could barely hear anything else. In the rear-view mirror, the sedan slowed down, its headlights growing smaller and smaller, until eventually they vanished into the night. None of us spoke for a long time after that. My mom kept the phone in her hand, ready to redial, but no one wanted to break the silence. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe he'd finally given up. But deep down, I knew we weren't safe yet. We stayed on that 2-lane road until it reconnected to the interstate, constantly checking the mirrors. For miles, there was nothing behind us. No headlights, no trace of that sedan. Eventually, my dad pulled into another gas station, this one larger and filled with trucks. He parked directly under the bright floodlights, got out, and checked the car as if to reassure himself we were still in one piece. My mom tried calling the police again, but by the time an officer finally arrived, there was nothing to report. No license plate, no car description beyond an old beat-up sedan. The officer said it was probably just some guy messing with us. "People get bored on the road," he shrugged. "Try not to worry." But it wasn't that simple. Because later that night, after we finally stopped at a motel, I woke up to use the bathroom. On my way back to bed, I peeked out through the thin motel curtains. Across the lot, parked under a flickering street lamp, was the same sedan. The man in the hoodie sat behind the wheel, facing our room. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and when I looked again, the spot was empty. To this day, I don't know if I imagined it. But I do know this. Every time I stop at a rest area now, I feel the same heavy stare I felt that night, and I can't help but wonder if he's still out there, waiting for another family to pull in. Some people say long drives at night are peaceful. The open road, the quiet hum of the engine, and the sense that the world has slowed down. But when you're alone on a dark highway, sometimes the silence makes you notice things you wish you hadn't. I was 21 when my friend and I took a cross-state road trip in my old Honda Civic. It was supposed to be simple: leave late in the evening, drive through the night, and reach our destination by sunrise. For the first couple of hours, it was fine. Empty roads, gas station coffee, bad music keeping us awake. Then we noticed the van. It was an old white cargo van, the kind with no windows on the sides, paint chipped and rust eating away at the bottom. At first, we didn't think much of it. Vehicles pass, vehicles follow. That's just how highways work. But this one didn't pass. It stayed. No matter how fast we drove or how slow, the van kept perfect pace with us, always behind us, never pulling alongside, never turning off at an exit. Just those dull headlights burning into our rearview mirror, mile after mile. We tried to laugh it off, saying maybe they were headed the same direction. But after the 3rd hour of seeing the same van in the same spot behind us, the laughter stopped. That's when we realized whoever was driving that van wasn't just on the same road as us. They were following us. At first, we tried not to panic. My friend suggested maybe it was just coincidence. Maybe they were going to the same city, maybe even further. I nodded, but deep down, I knew something was off. 3 hours on the same highway, matching every move we made? That wasn't coincidence. We decided to test it. My friend told me to switch lanes, so I did. The van followed. I slowed down. It slowed down too, keeping the exact same distance. Then I sped up, pushing the car well over the speed limit. The van's headlights grew smaller for a moment, but then they surged closer again, until they were right back where they'd been the entire time. My friend muttered a curse, sinking lower in his seat. "They're messing with us." We drove another 30 minutes like that, both of us tense, eyes flicking between the mirrors and the road ahead. The van never once passed us. Finally, we pulled into a gas station, hoping that would be enough to shake them. The lot was small, lit by buzzing fluorescent lights, with only one other car parked by the pumps. I parked near the entrance, pretending to stretch and yawn, trying not to look obvious as I checked the road behind us. Sure enough, a minute later, the white van rolled in. It didn't stop by the pumps. It didn't park by the store. It pulled into a corner of the lot and just sat there, engine running, headlights pointed straight at us. I told my friend to act normal. We went inside, grabbed some drinks, and stood by the counter longer than we needed to. When we came back out, the van was still there. The driver's side window was down, but I couldn't see the man's face, just the outline of someone sitting motionless. We got back in the car, hearts pounding. My friend whispered, "Let's drive the opposite way, see what they do." So instead of pulling back onto the highway, we turned down a side road that cut through the trees. For a moment, it felt like maybe we'd shaken them. The night swallowed the sound of our tires, and no headlights appeared behind us. But just as I started to relax, my friend twisted in his seat and whispered, "They're back." I looked in the mirror. Those same dull headlights had returned, creeping closer, following us down the narrow road. This time, the van sped up. Its headlights grew larger, brighter, until it was tailgating us so close I could barely see anything but white light filling the mirror. My friend shouted at me to floor it, and I did. The engine roared, tires squealing, as we tore through the dark back road. But no matter how fast I went, the van stayed right behind us. The road twisted sharply through the woods, and my headlights barely cut through the darkness. I gripped the wheel so tight my hands hurt, every nerve on fire as the van's lights bore into the back of my skull. My friend was panicking now, yelling directions, telling me to take turns at random. I swerved onto another side road, gravel spitting under the tires, but the van followed effortlessly, its heavy frame thundering over the uneven pavement. "Pull over!" my friend shouted. "We can't outrun it!" But the thought of stopping made my stomach drop. Something told me that if we let that van catch up, we weren't going to be leaving that road alive. The van surged closer, bumping the back of our car once, just enough to jolt us forward. My friend screamed. I slammed the gas pedal to the floor, praying the Civic could handle it. The speedometer climbed, the trees flashing past in a blur. But the van stayed on us, engine growling like it was feeding off our fear. Then, through the adrenaline haze, I saw it, an old rest area coming up ahead, its lot lit by a few scattered lamps and the glow of vending machines. Without thinking, I swerved hard, tires screeching as we pulled in. The van followed, but only to the edge of the lot. It stopped dead at the entrance, idling there, its headlights cutting across the cracked pavement. For a moment, it just sat there, the driver's silhouette barely visible behind the windshield. I couldn't take my eyes off it. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would burst. My friend begged me to stay in the car, but I couldn't. I needed to know. I cracked my door open, stepping out into the dim light. That's when I saw him. The driver leaned forward, just enough for the lamplight to catch his face. It was pale, thin, with hollow eyes that didn't blink once. His mouth curved into the faintest smile, cold, deliberate, like he was letting me know this was a game. And then, without warning, the van's headlights shut off. Darkness swallowed it whole. By the time my friend pulled me back into the car and we looked again, the van was gone. No engine sound, no taillights in the distance, just empty road stretching into the night. We didn't waste another second. My friend slammed the door shut, and I hit the gas, pulling us out of that rest stop as fast as the car could go. For miles, neither of us spoke. Every pair of headlights in the distance made my chest tighten. Every curve in the road felt like another trap. But the van never came back. When we finally made it to our destination hours later, it almost felt unreal, like maybe we had imagined it all in the haze of exhaustion and adrenaline. But the dents on the back bumper told a different story. Those weren't a dream. We never called the police. What would we even say? That an old white van followed us for hours, played cat and mouse with us on the highway, and then vanished without a trace? No one would believe it, even now, years later. I can't drive at night without checking the mirrors over and over. Anytime I see an old white van, my throat goes dry, and I feel that same fear crawling back up my spine. Because deep down, I know whoever was behind the wheel that night wasn't just some random driver. They were hunting us, and I don't think they were finished.